mean, I know we're talking so much about your collection in terms of the books and the movies, but you, you also have your camera equipment since you're a filmmaker. I mean, that's also a collection that you have. Could you talk about, these objects and what they mean to you and how you use them?
Sure. I mean, that's something else that is always, that's always a question too about all the, the cameras and other film equipment that I've acquired over the years and how much do you hold on to it. I mean, that gets back, and it's funny because like one of the things I have over on my shelf here, I was going through that today too. One of the things I came across was a mini DV camcorder that I bought strictly as a playback device for the mini DV tapes that I have. When I was shooting on that format, and that's like going back 20 years now. And so I have all these tapes, and of course I've transferred most of them either to digital or digitize them somehow. But there's a lot that I think about. How will I be able to play this in another 10 years or whatever? I mean, right now I've got the working mini DV camcorder to play them back. But then you start to think about like holding on to all this different technology so that it's you have a way of accessing these files and tapes and everything else. I mean, I still have an old MacBook computer that I hold on to access certain production files from when I was editing on the Mac. And it's so then it kind of gets into like having to be your own archivist as a filmmaker, and I think that it is something that a lot of indie filmmakers deal with. It's that question of how do you preserve your own work, which is why these questions about film preservation are really, I think, relevant to everybody in some way or form. And so, yeah, I had I came across that mini DV camcorder over there, and I'm like, do I really need to continue to hold on to this? I mean, all the tapes that I've had, like I said, I've digitized everything I need from those. But then there is always kind of that thought about, well, maybe I'll want some piece of footage or off of one of those tapes, or it might be the only copy of one of my films. If the digital file gets corrupted somehow, I might have to go and recreate it or pull it from the mini DV tape. So then I end up starting to hold on to all this stuff. But that reminds me, when I was going through I was going through a bin of equipment earlier, and I have to show you this. I found something I think will look familiar to you. Do you remember
Oh
this?
my goodness.
Yeah.
You gave this right before I think it was the last time we got together before I moved out of New York. You gave me this to use with the Bolex.
And that was um, the guy who owned that made scientific films. I don't know, remember their name. But yeah, it was a working scientific filmmaker.
Right. Looks like it's got the viewer here.
Yeah, I mean that's a chunk of weight right there. I'm glad you go to the gym if you put that on the Bolex.
Well, it's got the little handle to hold this up because can you imagine this much weight hanging off the end of the Bolex camera? That's and I found. Let me see if you remember this. This is this is a I think now it's a postcard you'd given me. It was tucked into the
Yeah.
package. Invasion of the Saucer Men. Edward L. Kahn.
Oh, that guy made a lot of movies. Let's give him an honorary Academy Award.
Yeah, these guys. I mean, they were making a lot of films each year.
I saw one last night that blew my mind. I couldn't find much information about it online. It's called Devil's Express, and shot in New York in the '70s, and it's a bit of a like New York kung fu horror movie. Um, but one of the touches I loved is that after somebody's been possessed, they just close their eyes and then they paint eyeballs on the eyelids, and that's the special effect. And it's really funny because it's just like pure. It's supposed to be just like pure white eyes, like no pupil or anything. And But as a result of that, the actor has to walk around basically blind, and you see him like stumbling around like near traffic, and there's like cars rushing by, and I'm like, and this guy's like trusting that the crew is gonna be like, you're getting too close to the cars. And I just love that effect. It's cheap, it's easy. It's really, I mean, it's genuinely funny watching this guy stumble around blind, but it's effective. Like it's, I don't know. I like those little, I like those little touches to low budget movies. Yeah, they're clever. They found a solution. They needed, how can we make this guy seem possessed on zero budget, and they figured out how. And
That's what I love. I mean, that's why I still, I love the fact that, even with what I'm doing, like you can still have fun with it. That's the thing about the zero budget movies is you kind of have to embrace the limitations and just have fun with it. And, to me, that is why after a certain point, I was like, it's just more fun making movies this way. And I think, I don't know if, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I know for like me, I actually have gotten to the point where I'm going like more like extreme in that direction of just embracing the limitations. I think when I was like making short films, like when I was living up in New York and making the short films, and I think I would usually tell you about them. When we would get together, about short films I was working on. I feel like even those, it was I was still kind of making them with some expectation of, oh, maybe I'll put this and try to get this into a festival or something. And now it's like I just want to have fun with it and just take it in any direction it'll go and get them out online. And I mean, to me, that's where the fun is.
I got, today I had band practice for my new band. It was the first time, and I brought the camera that I'm using. It's this Zoom Q2N, and I just set that thing up in the corner and hit record, thinking like, let's see what comes out. We played it back afterwards. The sound quality, I was like, if I bought an album like this, I would be fine with it. I mean, it's granted. I mean, it's we were playing hardcore, and it's sounds pretty raw, but you can hear all the instruments, nothing's peaking. You can hear the vocals fine, you can hear the drums fine, the bass, it's all defined, and it's like nobody did any mixing. It just captured the room perfectly. And oh my God, I just think if I had had this camera growing up, um, how many rehearsals would we have recorded? How many, albums would we have been able to produce with this? It's really remarkable. I love this little camera.
I know that's how I feel with making movies. It's like if I'd had the smartphones and everything else when I was starting out, I feel like it would have been like the sky's the limit. Of course, like even though I don't know if you found this with music, but I didn't feel I didn't really feel that restricted by the limitations of shooting on video as a kid. Like I think because there's always going to be things we can't imagine coming down the road. You know what I mean? There's going to be something, whether it's a decade or 20 years from now or 30 years from now, that makes today's equipment seem antiquated. And I think that, but having said that, I think that there's always creative ways of using it. Like again, it's about embracing the limitations of it. But my point is like when you're using this available technology, you don't at least I don't find myself thinking about what it can't do. I mean, to me, I'm still in awe of what it can do, and I mean that's just kind of my philosophy towards it.
I'm becoming more like that. For the longest time, I always would listen to my home recording and be like, oh, this could sound better. I could perform it better. I could record it better. And that really prevented me from finishing things for years and years. And I'm just trying to embrace the fact that I can record this stuff at home. I can play it myself. I'm not a virtuoso musician. I have songs that I believe in and that I need to write and play and sing. Um, and I think there's value in that, and there's certainly value in it for me. Um, but yeah, I'm trying to, just be more comfortable with, I don't have to write this stuff to a commercial standard. This isn't top 40. This isn't something that Sony is releasing. Like, this is me. Why do I have to put these commercial standards on what is just my personal art? And I don't have to. And really choked myself for a very long time with those false standards.
Yeah, I that's one thing. Like when I look back, I realized that I was limiting myself because I just had a lot of it was these kind of self-imposed standards, but they weren't even standards that I particularly wanted. They were things that I thought I needed to measure up to, and at some point I just said you can't create that way. You're constantly limiting yourself for no good reason, and I just think that the at this point my attitude is just to do whatever the hell I want, and to me it's so much more freeing. And I look, but I look for inspiration. It goes back to these a lot of these movies we've been talking about tonight, and how these were or are people out there just doing whatever the hell they wanted, what was important to them, and it's compelling. We still find it compelling. I just have to say one more thing as we're kind of taking a trip down memory lane with these cameras and everything. I have to show you one other thing I came across today. I happen to have it right
So what you got?
here. This is the Sony Handycam,
Oh,
my first
wow.
camcorder. Because you said you had a similar one to this. I wanted you to see this. I didn't know if this was the same
Yeah.
model that you had uh, years ago, but this is another thing. Do I hold on to this or toss it out? I mean, I don't think there's
The
no.
VHSC.
No, this actually would record on It was an 8 millimeter videotape, so it's a
Okay.
special little cartridge. But the problem is, I don't have the battery pack for it anymore. And I know that the last time that I had it fired up, probably about 15 years ago, it was it was definitely showing its age. Let's just say it was very kind of intermittent. The power was kind of coming and going. It was intermittent power. Um, but the funny thing is, I believe that this camera cost, I'm going to say about $700 in 1993.
Oh man, yeah, I can believe it.
My uncle got this for our family as a Christmas present, and I can tell you, I was never so excited by anything as I was by when we got this camera, when he got us this camera, because uh, there was, I wanted to make movies, but I had no way of doing it. That's what I mean. Like when you think about how fortunate kids now with getting smartphones and other like tablets that have video cameras built in at a young age, if they want to make movies, they've got the camera right there, they can go out and start doing it. But for me, it was really a matter of waiting until I had access to to a camera to use, and this was it. So I'm always kind of torn about whether to hold on to this for sentimental reasons now, or let go of it.
Now that you hold on to, man. Yeah, you got the. You're not gonna have to hunt down that thing. Like, I mean, that you can always throw in the back of your car or whatever. Like, that's that's a worthwhile object to hold on to. I think. I think you should. I don't know if you can find a battery pack, but if it has I wonder if you can find one of those. At least my VHSC cameras had battery packs that you could plug into the wall.
Yeah, this was a right. This was a it had like a charger, and the charger could either be used to charge the battery, or it could connect directly onto the back of the camera, and you could run it off
Yeah.
off of the power. Yeah, but it's
I
it's
would love
it's
to
neat.
see that.
'Cause I liked the. I never owned an 8 millimeter camera, but friends did. Um, it looked good.
Yeah, I mean the original tapes. If you transferred it, because I would transfer them to VHS. It's fun. Actually, it's funny though. It's a lot of my very earliest movies. I was making them so fast that I actually would. We only had a few of the 8 millimeter tapes, and I would actually get so excited to make another movie that I would sometimes even go and record over the movie before I had a chance to back it up on VHS.
So it's funny you say that because the guy who made Captain Alex, that's what he still. Well, at least until recently, he was running into that problem where he would finish the movie and then he would have to re-record over all the tapes from his camcorder in order to make the next one, and he couldn't store the files on the computer because they weren't big enough. So the only copies of his movies that exist, the early ones, are on DVDs that he gave to people, and some of those movies he can't find anymore.
Yeah, that gets back to this thing about having to be your own archivist, and I wish I still had a lot of those early. And I have most of them. I mean, I have most of the early movies I made because I would back them up on VHS, and I would just hook the because the camcorder had the you know AV jacks, and you just hook those into the VCR and record it. I mean, that's how I was also doing a lot of the editing.
VCR to VCR.
Yeah, yeah. Just where sometimes you'd have like the dual, VCRs set up and cutting between them and stuff. Yeah, it was. But then you also kind of had to get good at editing in camera too, and I did a lot of that. I mean, it's fun to look back at this. Again, it's like this is part of the fun of having a collection is the memories that it brings up. But this was kind of a video 8, so it was an 8 millimeter. This was not high 8. I talk to people sometimes who remember high 8, which was like the later kind of an intermediate between this and mini DV.
My buddy who I mentioned who wanted to watch movies, like early movies by people with the same limitations that he had, he used High 8 for his first movie.
Yeah, they're it's a whole that's a whole another issue of preserving all those independent, those movies that were shot on mini DV back in the day. I mean, I kind of wonder what happened to a lot of those because everybody was doing it. There was just so much. Again, this is what happens anytime you have all that creative potential that's unleashed by the technology, is that it seems to like it's like a catalyst. Like it sparks this flood of new ideas, and people who just are having these kind of creative bursts because you can suddenly it's possible to do something. I mean, I know I was really excited that way myself about digital uh, filmmaking because of the editing, and you could have you could do all your sound mixing there. I mean, that's something I definitely uh, still appreciate is when I can do nonlinear editing and have ways of editing and mixing the soundtracks because I couldn't do that with. There's no way I could have done it with that camera. Whatever you recorded on the tape was that was what you got.
I remember buying those capture devices that could transfer the red, yellow, white, go into the box, and then that'll go USB into the computer.
I had one of those, but never could get it to work with Windows 95.
Yeah,
I think I bought two or three. They always had problems.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was very. If my memory of how it worked was that there was basically a receiver that you would hook into the computer, and it would actually send the signal out. Like you would do all the editing on the computer, and then it would send a signal using like the same remote control signal out to your VCR and do the final edit onto your VCR. Do you remember this?
I do. I never got something like that to work for me. I was mainly trying to use I think we bought Premiere in like '97, but we couldn't get it to work. And then when iMovie, we got an iMac in '99, and then we were able to, or maybe it was 2000. That's when we started to like bought the capture device so we could go from VHS-C to the computer. And then I remember buying a mini DV camera, and it had the USB out, which was just mind blowing that you could connect straight to the computer.
Yeah, that's what changed it all. I think was when you could just hook in directly like that, and then yeah, then output it to the mini DV tape or whatever. Yeah, um, that was definitely a game changer. Yeah, it's funny because I was gonna mention something real quick. We were talking about home movies earlier, and I a number of years ago I kind of came into possession of my grandparents' 8 millimeter home movies, and I mean not 8 millimeter video, but
video, eight
yeah,
millimeter
yeah,
film.
right. And so I still have the box of those, and I had them transferred a few years ago just to be able to have digital copies to watch, so you're not playing the films out. But they're really it's such a good example too of how at that time you had to be a lot more selective about what you shot. Yeah, because you were limited to however many rolls of film you had, and um, it's always interesting to see what people wanted to record, or what memories they wanted to preserve. And I think that's always something whenever I'm watching, the amateur films and home movies and things. It's always interesting to look at what people preserve. I've got to show you. I've got that camera over here too, actually. This is the Kodak Brownie 8mm camera. And this was my
cute.
yeah. It's actually in surprisingly good condition.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was my grandfather got this. I think he told me that he bought this from a guy when he was getting out of the army or something. He said he bought this, or maybe it was a guy he knew in the army, and he was getting rid of it and was selling it. And the funny thing is, when my grandfather bought it, he was not really all that, he thought it was interesting to have, but he wasn't all that excited about it. But his father loved it and was like the one who took all the home movies. But see, this is, you've got the viewfinder on top there.
Man, that's so cool.
Yeah. But it's I don't know. It's fun to look at this, and like I said, it's still in such good condition. So I've held on to it. I've just had it sitting over on this shelf of filmmaking stuff.
You should do a movie where you use all the different cameras.
Yeah, that would be something. I actually did get a roll of 8mm film for this years ago. This like in like the late '90s. I bought a few rolls actually, and problem was I shot one, but I could never get it processed. There was like nowhere. I mean, at the time, it was really hard to find a place to process it.
I bet now Color Lab could probably do it.
Yeah, well, I've thought about looking into that. I mean, wherever that film is, I don't know if I even still have that roll, but it was just a test, just to see. I mean, the camera does still work, but yeah, I have some 16mm rolls that I shot because I've got the Bolex over here too.
I miss having a Bolex.
I got to bust it out. Hold on a minute. This is. Did I ever show you this? Because I bought it when I was living in New York. Did I ever show you the Bolex? It came in. It's got the original box.
Oh wow, I have not seen that box.
It's a little dusty. I haven't had it out in a few years to film with, but yeah, it's got the original instruction manual.
Yeah, my old Bolex had the manual, but it was a custom case.
There she is.
Oh man.
But let's see here. I had this. This was fully serviced when I bought it. They guaranteed their work. So let's see.
I want to hear that.
Oh yeah. There we go. Let's see.
Oh
There
yeah.
it is. We used Bolexes when I was in film school to shoot our first film projects. We did our first film projects on Bolexes, and what somebody said when you hear that, they said, "You hear that?" They said, "That's the sound of money going through the camera."
Yeah. That's so good.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's expensive. I'm letting it run out.
Yeah.
I actually got I bought another Bolex one time. Somebody left it tightly wound, so the spring, it was useless when it had been sitting tightly wound for all those years, and it was yeah.
So speaking of personal filmmaking, I was lucky to have Joel Schlimowitz as an instructor at the new school, and he taught the 16mm experimental class. And the way he taught us how to use it was very much in this personal, style of filmmaking. Using the camera roll. I think we did it. I think he had took us into a lab to show us how one would edit, but the whole class was built on you have the camera roll in your camera. Everything you're doing is in camera. As soon as it comes out, your film is done. And I really loved that sort of conception. he kept it very economical. I remember at one point a student had come in and they showed the footage after it had been developed, and you know the something like the gate or something was loose, and so the image shook all over the place. And Joel's response was, "Man, that's beautiful. Let me show you how to do that yourself so you can do it on purpose next time." And it's just like, man, like you're telling us how to like break the camera without breaking it, like, but just man, there was a guy who just loved everything about that camera, and every mistake that to you would be a mistake to him was like a moment, like a potential for something really beautiful and unique and personal. And I thought there was just such a wonderful way to teach and to show people how to use the Bolex, and why it's a unique object.
Oh yeah, for sure. They're remarkable cameras. I mean, they do so much, and I've seen. I look at like some of, you know, Jonas Mekas' films, like Notes on the Circus, and all those like in-camera dissolves that he's doing and everything. I mean, it's amazing what you can get a Bolex to do. I think that one of the things I've said this a lot, but when I was the first time I used a Bolex, I mean, I had been making movies on my own for years at that point on video, but filming with the black and white reversal film and having those elements of sound and color stripped away taught me so much about just the fundamentals of making a movie. Really, it was like starting over, but in like the best way. It was really like getting back to the basics, and after that, it gave me a whole new appreciation for sound and color and how to use it. And I think I do think there's still a lot of value to teaching filmmaking on a Bolex, and just like I said, just to kind of like strip down to the basics of making a movie, and yeah, they're remarkable cameras. I don't know if I'm going to be holding on to it though, because really the cost of shooting and having the film processed and everything, it is tough, but
I eventually sold mine a few years ago when I was getting ready to move.
yeah. No, I suspect I will eventually here. It's still in really good condition and everything. But I'll ask you something real quick. I was looking at this. There's one last thing I'll show you. This did I ever tell you about this camera? It's talking about like what technology, all these new things. I ever show you the Sony, the Bloggy 3D.
No.
3D pocket camera, and it's got the two. You see, it's got the two lenses side by side.
Wow.
I think Godard used this or a similar one on his. What was it, Goodbye to Language? He did in 3D.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it was a similar. I think it was a similar type of camera, but it's the thing is the 3D picture on this was really. It was impressive, considering how this is like a budget, pocket camera.
Man, that looks fun.
Yeah, I actually wanted to kind of get out and start using it again. I mean, it's one of those things like it's definitely for, um, it's definitely something where you can just take it out and just start, kind of film anything that's of interest and put it out there in 3D. I mean, I'd love to like take it out and just get some shots of trees and flat, like just to really get some interesting like nature shots and things. But yeah, it's a fun little camera. I have a funny story though about how I heard about this, and it wasn't.
Yeah, what?
I was at a little reception one night, and Ken Jacobs was there.
Oh man.
And he had it wasn't this exact model, but a very similar one, and he was had it out filming with it, and I was really kind of intrigued, because that was 3D. He's done a lot of experiments with 3D video, but it was a similar model. So I started looking up these budget 3D cameras that were online, and they were starting to kind of go out of stock. Because I think this one was actually already down to like the last few you know, items that they had on Amazon.
Oh man. Yeah, I didn't even know those things were made. I'm so behind.
Yeah, it's like one more avenue to explore. I'll have to get it out one of these days and start filming with it again. But anyway, yeah, these are all things that I have to kind of make the decision about whether to hold on to or not. This I will hold on to, but it's just you can amass so much stuff between the movies, books, equipment. It really does get to be overwhelming. So that's why like the making this little video project. It's just kind of a way to, I guess, to think through it as much as anything, and just kind of document all these different things in case I do get rid of them. I can always have the memories of them at least.
And the memory of how you came to those decisions.
Right.